All right, I am making this video a little earlier than I usually would. I normally don't like to make 1 week's video until after I have corrected the essays. Not corrected, but commented on the essays. Yeah, corrected. And commented also on your comments from the previous week. Okay, but since I won't be able to work on your things either Saturday or Sunday this weekend. I'm making this video on Friday so I can get it posted for you, so that those of you who start doing your work on Sunday or Monday will have it if you need it, because I'm not sure if I'll be able to be able to make another video on Monday or not. My weekend is, my schedule is all crazy. And again, I already emailed you as to why. So that's okay. So anyway, I've only seen 3 of your essays so far, and each of those was pretty well done. It's interesting that the person who wrote the first one said that she was waiting for other people so that she could see what it was like. Well, I know that's what everybody does. Everybody wants to read some other people's essays so they can get an idea of what kind of approach to take. And you know what? Fortunately, somebody's got to be first. And that person did a great job, and the people who followed also did a great job. And they all went in very different directions. So they didn't really, read somebody's and then copy what they said in their own. No, didn't do that at all, which is good. That's what I want you to do. Okay. One of the essays that I did get made the point that what literature means to me may not be the same as what it means to you. My interpretation and your interpretation may be different. Every reading that we do will be, our views toward it will be governed by who we are, what we've lived. No two of us has lived the same lives. We have a pair of sisters in this course. Those two have not lived the same lives either, because they're different people, okay? So all of us, each of us has had different experiences from the others, and so what we find in a piece of literature is going to be internalized by each of us in a different way than others, which means it's going to come out with a different kind of meaning, okay? That's okay, as long as the meaning that you're giving is kind of based on what happens in the story, okay? So enough of that. Now, we want to talk a little bit about the concept of plot, and I'll have a lesson about plot posted for you, but you need to know some basics about it and about the particular story that we're talking about this week. What plot really means is the arrangement of the happenings in a work of literature so that they can come together to make a story, okay? Naturally, there's a certain logic to that. Every story has to have a beginning before which there really was nothing, and that's okay. It works out that before which there was nothing. And every story has to have an ending, where it takes us to a certain point and has given us enough information, even if it doesn't answer all the questions. It gives us enough information, okay? And then every story needs a middle, something that goes between the beginning and the ending logically. So plot really is a logical arrangement. Now, the way things are written in a story are not necessarily in a chronological sequence, okay? What do I mean? The way things appear in a story may not really be on a straight timeline, okay? That's the way this week's work, A Rose from Emily, is. It is not on a straight timeline. In fact, when you first start the story, you are actually almost at the very end of it, okay? And then you go back from the end to a beginning and happenings in the middle, and they may not necessarily be in chronological order either. So if you find this confusing, the easiest way for you to put things to put the plot, the occurrences, so that they build a certain kind of climax for you, so that they build a certain kind of conflict for you. If they aren't happening from the way they're arranged in the story, and again, in this story, they're kind of like, all over the place till you get back to where you started from, which is, kind of an interesting take. You end up where you started in this story, even though you go through a whole story to get there. But there are a lot of pieces to this story, and you need to read it relatively carefully, okay? So anyway, if you want to simplify it for yourself, draw a timeline, and then in that timeline, put down where things happen. So I'm already telling you that the first thing you see is the end, so therefore or almost the end. So that would go at the end of the timeline. Then you hop back to the beginning and get some history, and you might make some little notes there. And then you get some things that happen in the middle, and they aren't directly in the timeline either. They hop around a little bit, okay? That's the way this story works. So the plot, the structure of this story is arranged to give you all the details you need, and they're kind of given to you in the order where they would work the best, okay? Now, some things to look for in this story. When you read about Homer Baron, okay, read about him a little bit carefully, because there are some very important pieces to Homer Baron that you need to understand to kind of figure out why the relationship between Homer Baron and Emily Grierson work out the way that they do. Okay, so that's an important piece that I'm kind of giving you a hint about. Also, William Faulkner wrote this story, and he centered it in the South. And he grew up in the South. So he centers it in the old South, but a changing South. And he lived through that changing South. After the Civil War, the South changed pretty slowly. I mean, the old Civil War was a place of tobacco plantations and significant slavery going on, all of that kind of thing. The Civil War ended in 1865. This story is, a good number of years after that, but the South changed very slowly, okay? So Emily Grierson is a product of the old South, the non-industrialized South, the South where significant families were significant families, okay? The South in her childhood hadn't become the kind of thing where there was a certain equality amongst all the people, as we pretty much see today, okay? Not that everybody lives the same, but, we don't have different kind of statures in society. The guy who lives next door to you might be a multi-gazillionaire, but he'll walk out and talk to you just like you're anybody, That's our world today. That's not the world of the Old South. You had the upper crust, and the upper crust basically didn't associate with the rest. Emily Grierson was kind of raised as being part of the upper crust, but that society had changed by the time she moved into her more mature years, yet she still wanted life to be like it was in the Old South when she and the Grierson family were something special, okay? So it's hard for her to see the changes, and you'll see that going on all through the story, okay? So be aware that we're changing from the Old South to an industrialized South, okay? And Emily is not adapting to that well at all, okay? So this is a really cool story. Read it and enjoy it. And again, don't read it like it's a science book, but read it so that you do kind of pick up on the details as you go through, because they are kind of important. And then, I have a lesson for you on plot. Read that, and then you're seeing my video now. And my video question really is this: what is the clue for you that indicates how Emily really spent her nights, many of her nights, in the later years of her life? Okay? And the story tells us that, but you have to be paying attention to catch it. Okay? So have a good week. I'm sorry that I can't comment more on your essays, but I'm sure you're doing well, and I'll comment more on them next week. Make sure you read my comments on your essays and my comments on your comments. That'll help you going forward. Okay? Take care, and have a good week.